Thank you for joining us today for the Idaho SAT School Day Pre-Administration and Rostering Pre-Recorded Training Session. We're excited to be entering another year of delivering the SAT in Idaho in partnership with the Idaho State Department of Education. I'm Eddie Pulaski, Director of Outreach and Implementation and one of the College Board Idaho field team members. We have a lot of information to share on this recorded webinar, and we look forward to the collaborative effort for the Spring 2019 SAT School Day Administration. All right, so let's begin. Today's agenda includes a high-level overview of the pre-administration session, a discussion of student rosters and room planning, an overview of the optional student questionnaire, and tips for planning the pre-administration session. So what is the pre-administration session? The pre-administration session allows students to complete the following activities directly on their answer sheet, which saves time on test day by helping them complete personal information fields, complete the optional student questionnaire, opt in to Student Search Service, and select up to 4 colleges or scholarship programs to send their SAT scores. The estimated time to complete the pre-administration session is between 45 and 60 minutes. Why should you conduct a pre-administration session? Besides saving time on test day, it allows for administering the SAT and SAT with essay in the same room if needed. Students can also take advantage of their 4 free score sends. The optional questionnaire allows students to opt into Student Search Service and provide information about themselves to help connect them with colleges and scholarship programs based on their interests. Only eligible colleges and scholarship and educational organizations can participate. They most often search on expected high school graduation date, cumulative GPA, and intended college major. Students can choose which optional questions they complete, and as a special note, if students have already completed the questionnaire as part of the PSAT and MSQT testing, they do not have to recomplete unless they wish to update their answers. Each school will receive a shipment of pre-administration materials in early March, the week of March 4th through the 8th. This shipment includes coordinator testing manuals, answer sheets and student answer sheet instructions, pre-ID label for students who were bulk registered. These are shipped separately, but they arrive at the same time. And then the SAT School Day student guides. We suggest that you schedule a session ahead of time to allow your students to fill in student background information and to request their 4 free score sends. Also, distribute the SAT School Day student guides to students. This contains information about the Student Search Service and has sample test questions. Students can have discussions with their family, and they'll have a better perspective of what to expect on test day. Preparing for the pre-administration session. On the screen, you'll see pictures of the multiple materials used for test administration. Pre-administration material includes pre-ID labels, student answer sheets, student answer sheet instructions, and SAT student guides. Labels will be shipped to schools for all students pre-ID'd by the January 16th bulk registration deadline. Schools will receive a label for each pre-ID'd student that should be affixed to the answer sheet. For any students not included in the pre-ID file, these students will grid all fields on the answer sheet on test day. Depending on the number of students to be tested, the session may be conducted by a test coordinator, or 1 or more proctors may be needed to conduct multiple sessions. If students are absent on the pre-administration day, a separate session will need to be scheduled with them some other time before test day. You should allow enough time for students to complete and review the student guide and discuss with their families. Students and parents should have ample time to review the questionnaire for the pre-administration session. We strongly recommend completing the pre-administration before test day. However, if that's not possible, students will complete their personal information on their answer sheet on test day before testing begins. In this situation, score sends and the optional questionnaire will be completed after testing. However, please remember that additional supervision will be needed to ensure that students don't change responses to any questions during the post-test session. With the pre-ID labels for SAT, you should use your master student list of who will be testing, verifying information on labels prior to the pre-administration session. Check to see if the school AI is correct, the students who are named attend your school, and that the grade level is correct. If the first name or last name listed on the label does not correctly reflect the student's legal name, please do not use the label. Instead, students will need to grid their information. If the label is correct, affix it to the front of the student answer sheets before the session. With the label, students are required to bubble in at least their name, date of birth, and their Idaho assigned student ID or their EDU ID number for data verification purposes. Though recommended, the remaining required fields may be left blank unless the student does not have a label. If gridding is missing, but the label is on the answer sheet, the test will still be processed. Students without a pre-ID label must bubble in all required fields, and please ensure that students use their EDU ID as their student ID number on the answer sheet. Again, we suggest that you distribute the student guides to students in advance of your pre-administration session. Allow time for your students to review with parents and to make a decision for which schools they wish to send their scores. Please inform students they'll need number 2 lead pencils for the session, and inform students of the date and time schedule for the pre-administration session. Read the Preparing for the Pre-Administration section of the Coordinator's Manual. Apply labels to the correct answer sheet type for each student if you have students using standard or large block, or the SAT or SAT with essay. Create your room plan for conducting the pre-administration session and determine how you will conduct your sessions along with determining your staffing needs. Arrange for a separate pre-administration session prior to test day for students who are absent. Although arrangements can be made for some students to complete the optional questionnaire and designate the colleges where they want to send their SAT scores after testing, we strongly recommend that all students complete these tasks prior to test day. Conduct the session in school, and please do not let your students take the answer sheets home. You should meet with staff who will administer the pre-administration sessions to distribute copies of the manuals and instruct them to become familiar with the pre-administration scripting, provide their room assignment, review roles and responsibilities of staff conducting the sessions, review the materials students will use during the session, including the answer sheets, pre-ID labels, and student answer sheet instructions, review the appropriate scripts with staff so they're familiar with them, and instruct staff to display the 6-digit AI code in a prominent place in the pre-administration room for students to see. We also share that you should see the prepare your pre-administration session section of your coordinator manual for more details. Now let's talk about room planning and rosters. Test coordinators will need to develop a master student list or a roster of test takers for SAT school day. Each associate coordinator or proctor will need a roster for his or her room. Test coordinators will need to return either the master student list or the individual room rosters in their used answer sheet shipment, and test coordinators should make a copy and save the list in a safe location for 6 months after test day. The copy of the master student list and room rosters would be important in the event of an irregularity or a discrepancy. Test coordinators may need the list to respond to inquiries from ETS or the College Board during an investigation. Pull the eligible students from your school student information system or work with your district assessment coordinator to obtain the list of students to be tested. Test coordinators should use the College Board K-12 reporting portal to access the roster report registration summary to determine the number of students who will be taking the essay and the number of rooms needed. We recommend providing separate rooms for students testing with and without essay. However, you may test students in the same room if necessary due to room or staffing constraints and if a pre-administration was conducted in advance of test day. We ask you to refer to the SAT Test Coordinator Manual for more information. Ask your SSD coordinator to print a copy of the NAR from the College Board's SSD online system and use the NAR to identify the number of rooms that will be needed to administer the SAT to students testing with accommodations. Add all room and staff assignments to your master student list. Create your master student list in Excel or Word format. You'll see an example on the screen, but schools may choose to include other information as they deem appropriate. It will be important to track attendance so that you know what makeup materials to request. Once you have your room assignments for staff, you need to create a roster for each testing room that each associate coordinator can use to record attendance on that day. Divide your master student list into individual room rosters for students testing in standard test rooms. You have the option to build room rosters for accommodated testing rooms or use copies of the NAR. As test day approaches, continue to account for additional students who may be eligible for testing, like students who recently transferred to your school. In addition, work with your SSD coordinator to identify students who may have recently been approved for accommodations. We suggest that you continue to update your master student list and room rosters until test day. Assigning a unique code to each testing room allows you to organize answer sheets for pre-administration sessions and for distribution on test day. If a group irregularity occurs, the code can help you pinpoint who may have been affected and which staff member or members can offer information for quicker resolution and release of scores. If you have a mixture of students taking the SAT and SAT with essay at your school, you can assign them to the same room to conserve space and staff, but we still recommend separate rooms if feasible. Schools approved for off-site testing will no longer need the 5-digit test center codes. Schools using multiple off-site locations will all have the same AI code. Coordinators at off-site locations will need to know their school AI code when filling out the IR or their CRF. Important additional points. Make sure off-site test coordinators and proctors are provided with training. Plan for secure transport to and storage of test materials at off-site locations. Completed test materials will be picked up from the off-site location the afternoon of test day. Each location's test coordinator is responsible for ensuring that the off-site center meets the requirements for test materials security, room configuration, seating, and test day staffing as described in the manual. So quickly, what is the Non-Standard Administration Report, or NAR? The NAR provides a list of students who have been approved for testing with accommodations. SSD coordinators will access and print the NAR from the SSD online dashboard. The NAR will be used to identify students testing with accommodations on your master student list and can also be used as the room roster for accommodated testing rooms. The NAR includes a summary of students with their SSD numbers, a list of students who will test on the primary test date with accommodations, a list of students who will test during the accommodated testing window, and additional instructions for testing students with accommodations. The NAR for the SAT is the same report as it was last year for the 2018-19 school year. Features include identification of students who will test on the primary test date versus the accommodated window, identification of 1-day versus 2-day testing accommodations, identification of what color test books students will use for testing, either purple or blue, identification of which scripts to begin with for test administration. The NAR also displays students who have been approved for accommodations at the school and also have been pre-ID'd in the bulk registration pre-ID process. SSD coordinators will be able to add students with approved accommodations to the NAR to build a complete list of students taking the SAT with accommodations. The SSD coordinator will run the NAR from the SSD Online dashboard. They should select SAT and test date and enter the AI code. When generating the NAR, one of the following scenarios will occur. There are no students approved for accommodations. All students with approved accommodations match a student registration from the school or district pre-ID file, or there are students with approved accommodations with a matched student registration and students who are approved but did not match a registration with the school or district pre-ID file. In a situation where a school has no students approved for accommodations, the SSD coordinator will get the message on the screen when running the NAR. When all students with approved accommodations in SSD Online match to the student pre-ID information provided during bulk registration, SSD coordinators will see a list of students with their College Board SSD number. The SSD coordinator will click the Create SAT Non-Standard Administration Report to generate the report for printing. It is possible that not all students with approved accommodations will match to the school or district provided pre-ID information. Common reasons for this include students that transfer to your school when students were pre-ID'd by your district or school, students whose information in SSD Online is too different from what was provided during the bulk registration process. When this happens, SSD coordinators will follow a two-step process to generate the NAR. Step 1 would be to view the list of matched students and click Continue. Step 2 would be to select the additional students that will be tested and their test type. Select Create Non-Standard Administration Report to generate the NAR. Both steps are illustrated on this screen. Now let's talk briefly about returning the master student list after testing. After all materials have been collected from proctors, the test coordinators should carefully check each room roster and NAR against the final master student list, noting a room assignment and testing room code for each student. Test coordinators should return the NAR in the white accommodated testing envelope with the answer sheet return shipment. They should return the annotated master student list in the answer sheet return shipment and keep a copy of the master student list for their files. If all of the information from each room roster is not transferred to the master student list, please keep a copy of each room roster. Room rosters do not need to be returned. Now, that was a quick discussion about rostering. Let's return to conducting the pre-administration session. You should plan for approximately 45 to 60 minutes to complete the pre-administration session. Distribute pre-labeled answer sheets and student answer sheet instructions. All students will complete on Part 1 the personal information, including those with labels. They will bubble in their name, their school code, and their date of birth, and the other information that you see on the screen, including their EDU ID number. For Part 2, Score Send, students will use the answer sheet instructions to locate the appropriate codes for any college or scholarship programs. Students will be able to answer additional optional questions during this session. So before starting the session, staff should post any information the students will need, such as the 6-digit school AI code. Staff should be given state student EDU ID numbers for the students participating in the pre-administration session who do not have a pre-ID label. Staff will give each student the appropriate type of answer sheet, a copy of the answer sheet instructions, and a copy of the mobile opt-in policies document. Please make sure that your staff is prepared to correctly match the labeled answer sheet to the student whose information is on the label. Those conducting the session will need to use the scripts in the SAT School Day Standard Testing Manual under the heading Conduct Pre-Administration Session. Be sure to distribute the necessary copies of the manual to staff who need them. In the SAT School Day Standard Testing Manual, staff will read aloud the scripts in shaded areas and pause when pause appears to give students time to follow instructions. Instructions for the proctors that shouldn't be read aloud appear outside of the shaded areas. So students without a pre-ID label must bubble in all the required fields on the answer sheet. These fields include name, testing location, school, school code, student ID number or EDU ID number, grade level, date of birth, sex. Students will complete the following fields on test day. These will be skipped during the pre-administration session. These include form code, test ID, test book serial number, testing room code, and testing type. After the pre-administration session, proctors will collect all answer sheets and answer sheet instruction documents, confirm that all students have entered their EDU ID accurately. For any students that left box 5, student identification, blank, they will enter the EDU ID number on the answer sheet and fill in the corresponding bubbles. Return answer sheets to the test coordinators as instructed. Alphabetize the completed answer sheets and sort them by testing room code if that's applicable. Test coordinators will organize your labeled answer sheets by alphabetizing them within testing room groups before returning them to the boxes and securely storing them until test day. And they'll track students who miss the pre-administration session and schedule a makeup pre-administration session prior to test day. Some final reminders and details. As you know, the Idaho SAT School Day will be administered on April 9th, 2019. As you prepare for test day, please remember the reminders below. You should have received already your coordinator planning kit, which contains a sample of manuals, samples of test day forms, and posters to put up in your school. The pre-administration shipment arrives between March 4th and March 8th, and this includes materials such as answer sheets, pre-ID labels, and SAT school student guides. The secure testing materials will arrive later in March, and all shipments will be addressed to the SAT test coordinator, and you should expect multiple boxes to arrive. SAT coordinators received an email on February 26 providing access to the online training. SAT coordinators are required to complete the training even if it was completed in the past because of the changes that are made from year to year. Associate coordinators must be trained in some fashion, whether through online training or training provided by the SAT coordinator. And additional optional training for hall monitors and room monitors has been sent with a communication about this recording training session. So this concludes the presentation today. We want to thank you for participating in this recorded training as you prepare for the April SAT School Day administration. The recording and the presentation deck are provided for you to share with testing staff at your school. Also, you'll find an additional short presentation deck that is designed specifically to train hall and room monitors. Please contact your Idaho SD support at collegeboard.org email if you have questions or need assistance, or you can contact any of the members that are listed on the screen. Melanie Jones at the Department of Education, the Idaho SD support email, Stephen McHugh, or Eddie Pulaski. We thank you again and hope you have a pleasant day.